Madam Secretary, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
A lot of news in your space this week, not in Michigan, but Fulton County, Georgia.
Yeah.
And you're here for the National Association of Secretaries of State. As I understand it, later today, the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, all due to talk to secretaries of state across the country. Try to evaluate those two things for me, if you can.
Yeah, I mean, it really reinforces what we've seen unfolding since the 2020 election, which is that we continue to be in the middle of a battle over the future of our democracy, over the future of our rights and freedoms. And it's a battle that's it's made it increasingly clear as things unfold in Minnesota as well, how critical state officials are to standing up to lies, to threats, to the misuse and abuse of authority at the federal level, and do so to stand up in furtherance of the truth of the law and to protect the voices, the votes, the safety of the residents and citizens in our respective cities and states. So I'm proud to have always been that official who will do that, but now more than ever, we need all states officials, regardless of your political background, regardless of your party affiliation, to just stand up to the threats, the lies, all designed, ultimately, I think, not just to dismantle democracy and all that we talk about in this battle, but to make us feel small, like our voices don't matter, and to deter the American people from actually exercising their rights to hold this administration accountable at the ballot box, all of which, of course, is tied up in the other rhetoric we're hearing about President Trump joking about canceling an election and all the rest. Not on our watch, but also, again, let's read between the lines. This is about making us feel like we don't have the power that we do as citizens in this country to hold elected officials, leaders accountable, especially when they do things that hurt our economy and our democracy.
Do you see any legitimate role for the FBI taking materials out of the Fulton County elections offices?
Look, first, transparency is our friend. And the 2020 election, through being a very transparent, secure, most highly scrutinized election in American history, certainly in recent history, has only reaffirmed, all of the investigations have only reaffirmed that that election was secure and an accurate reflection of the will of the people. Donald Trump lost the 2020 presidential election. And instead of accepting that and moving on, and actually doing the work that he has now been elected to do, the rehashing of long disproven conspiracy theories with no evidence that there's any evidence of wrongdoing. And look, if there had been anything awry with the 2020 election, we would have found it by now because of the level of scrutiny that we've seen, not just in Georgia, where they did a full hand recount of the paper ballots in that election.
With observers.
With observers. Transparency is our friend. In Michigan, we did over 250 audits of that election, all of which conducted not just by election officials, but by the state auditor, by Republican officials in the state Senate. All of those investigations, audits, and the like only reaffirmed the results of the election and reinforced the security of our processes. So, again, we welcome the questions. We welcome the ongoing conversation. But we all need to, at some point, just recognize Donald Trump lost in 2020. The election was safe and secure and an accurate reflection of the will of the people. And it gets to the point of then why? Why rehash these old, long disproven conspiracy theories? Because one effect it does have, not just in continuing to sow seeds of doubt among the American people, wrongly so, about our elections, it leads to threats against us, against election officials, against local officials, against our families, our staff. And that is exhausting. To show up every day and do our job well and with integrity, whether we be Republicans, independents, or Democrats, to do a good job and administer a safe, secure, high turnout election, and then have to withstand threats to our families, to our safety, because of these baseless accusations and it's conspiracy theories. To me, Attorney General Bondi, Secretary Noem, and others want to come to our association today and talk to us. That's what I have to say. Know that as you further these conspiracy theories, the impact is on us.
Jeopardizing you, jeopardizing the people who report to you.
Exactly. And local officials, clerks in communities who are our neighbors, who just poll workers who sign up to do this work because they believe in democracy. These are professionals who are committed to integrity and to the law and to making sure every vote is counted and every voice is heard. And we have been under and endured so much over these last few years because of this rhetoric, because of these falsehoods. We always stand up and disprove and prove that the election was secure and accurate, disprove the accusations, and yet they keep coming. and yet it keeps happening. And it's to the point where, for us, we'll continue to endure it, but I want these folks to know, who are now abusing their authority at the federal level, chasing down these falsehoods and baseless conspiracy theories, that the only thing they're actually going to do is hurt our ability to do our jobs and threaten the security of our lives.
I want to ask you about Don Lemon, because he was arrested last night for violating the FACE Act, which has a provision in it that preserves the integrity of religious observances and doesn't allow intimidation or interference. He was there under First Amendment rights, his attorney asserts. When you announced your candidacy for governor, you did so on the anniversary of the overturning of Roe versus Wade. So there's an abortion rights component to that launch. How do you evaluate the arrest of Don Lemon?
I mean, it's, again, a reflection of a moment where, when citizens need to have access into information, where transparency and coverage of tragedies like the one unfolding in Minnesota are necessary for us as citizens to know how to act and perform in a democracy, what to speak out against, what's actually happening in communities like ours. And when we as officials want to know information on how to simply just protect the safety of our residents, all residents, whether in a place of worship or anywhere else, truth and transparency and journalists who uncover that truth and push for that transparency are critical to our democracy, to our ability to be informed and engaged as American citizens. I started my career in Selma, Alabama, right? Thankfully, journalists were down there covering the tragedy that unfolded at the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge in March of 1965, so that we today can be reminded through that footage of the bravery and courage of those citizens who stood and faced down state troopers in furtherance of the right to vote. That's inspired me and countless others to do the work we do. But in addition to that, we would not know it had happened had there not been journalists there covering it. So to threaten the ability of anyone to simply just tell the truth about what's happening on the ground, especially if it's at the hands of the federal government or anyone else, it is an affront to everything we're supposed to be in our democracy and everything that this country is supposed to stand for.
I want to ask you about something that the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, recently said, which is about the 2026 election. She has some concern that there might be the deployment of federal forces in and around polling places, and that tabletop exercises have been initiated to respond to that possibility.
Yes.
Explain that.
Yeah. Since 2020, a component of our planning for elections has been these tabletop exercises where we unfold and unpack with local election officials, law enforcement, and first responders all the different things that could happen in an election. We always hope for the best, but plan for every contingency. This year, the seeds seem to be being planted. With everything we're seeing, it is a necessary step to ensuring our elections are secure and safe, and that we can give the people of Michigan the certainty that their voice will be heard in any election, that they will be safe in expressing that voice and casting their ballots. It is incumbent upon us, given all the seeds being planted and everything we're seeing continually unfold in this moment from this White House and elsewhere, it's incumbent upon us to engage in scenario planning exercises to now plan for all the things that could happen, including the potential deployment of federal troops to interfere with our elections. And even this conversation that we have to think about planning for that type of scenario really underscores this critical moment that we're in and how important state officials and local officials are in making sure we are protecting our residents and standing up to anyone who would try to take their rights away. But it also reinforces to me the importance of all of us as Americans being critical consumers of information and all of that, and also understanding that the impact of these types of seed planting and things is meant to make us feel like we shouldn't have faith in democracy.
And so we can't allow that to happen. What are the options if there is a deployment of federal force?
It depends. I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios that we plan for. It could also be people taking it on their own accord to
in a
interfere.
vigilante sort of way.
Potentially, yeah. It could also be rumors planted that something is happening even though it's actually not, right? Something on social media, pictures show up.
Something that has been generated by artificial intelligence.
Correct, exactly. And so we look at all of those possibilities with an eye towards ensuring we're getting truthful information out, deterring anything from happening to begin with, and mitigating the negative impact of it. On the specific example of the actual deployment, there will be a lot of work happening. It certainly wouldn't happen overnight. It certainly would, I think will become more apparent in the months ahead if we're going to have to do more or have additional conversations with folks at the federal level to protect our elections at the local level. So we'll see how that plays out. But even just the seeds being planted, preparing for anything, actually means looking through every way in which anyone could be hearing this and take it into their own hands to do something.
And the governor of your state said it's not paranoid to work through this.
It's the job of our state officials right now to see what's happening and to protect our citizens accordingly.
And perhaps underscoring that reality, the governor of Minnesota has contemplated the deployment of the National Guard as a hedge against the arrival or the presence of federal immigration forces. So there was a scenario in which they could be pitted against one another. I don't want to be a dramatist here, but is it possible that National Guard could be deployed as a protector of voting places in opposition to federal forces?
I think governors and state officials need to be prepared to use every tool in your toolbox to protect the will of the people, the voters of Michigan, the safety and security of our residents. That is what is required. That is the job in this moment, to protect and grow our economy and protect the safety of our communities and their rights and their freedoms from anyone, and use every tool available to us in doing so.
That's really heavy.
It is, it has been the escalation, frankly, of everything we've been enduring since 2020. It was May of 2020 when I was under attack by then President Trump, now President Trump, for simply just getting ballots or informing citizens on how they could get access to ballots in the midst of the pandemic. And so all of that has been unfolding in 2020 till now. When the tragedy unfolded at our U.S. Capitol on January 6th, one of my colleagues said, "I fear this is not the end of this election, but just the beginning of a multi-year effort to upend democracy," and that is exactly what we're living through. So at this point, in this moment, yes. Did I imagine 10 years ago this is where we'd be? Of course not. But it is where we are now. And we as officials, state officials, have to be prepared to follow our North Star, protect democracy, protect the people, protect the safety of our communities against anyone who would try to rip their voices or votes away.
And from your vantage point, because I think this is important in the context of this conversation, Trump won in 2016, he won in 2024.
Yeah. Will of the people, right? That's what a democracy is. And then also, I think in 2024, what I saw in Michigan, certainly, was the importance of leaders who recognize the affordability crisis that we're in, the unaffordability of just about everything, the real struggles that people of Michigan are going through. Wanting to see leaders who will take on those struggles and deliver results, reducing the cost of healthcare, increasing access to well-paying jobs. And so, yes, I think the 2024 election was a reflection of residents, citizens wanting to see leaders who they believed and trusted to actually reduce the cost of living and increase access to well-paying jobs. The fact that this president has not only not delivered on that to the people of Michigan, but is actually engaged in these sort of chaotic tariff wars that have not improved our economy, have not driven down the cost of living in our state, have not created more jobs in our state. That is particularly offensive to me as a resident of our state, and as I see voters who trusted Trump to deliver, and he didn't. So, yes, I as someone who won statewide in Michigan in 2022 by 14 points, including in communities that no other Democrat won, I know how to show up and listen and hear and produce results. And I see in the eyes of Republicans, independents, and Democratic voters in Michigan the disappointment in those who did support Trump and did believe he was going to improve their quality of life, now looking around and saying, that's not happened.
You talked in general about threats. You have very genuine personal lived experience with that. I have a roster here of things: threats via email, threats via phone, threats at your property, all sorts of things you had to do with your husband and child to mitigate risks. Do you want to talk about that?
I'm a mom. It's hard, right? It's really hard to remember that when my kid was 4 years old, he's now 9, but when he was 4, we were decorating the Christmas tree when armed protesters showed up at our house in December of 2020 because they had been fed lies about the election, demanding that I come out and face them, shouting into bullhorns, "You're a murderer," things like that were just beyond the pale. But, in that moment, I certainly was scared for my son, for my family. and focused on protecting him and maintaining serenity. And in the moments that have happened since, swatting attempts, bomb threats, there's always a feeling of apprehension and fear because you just don't know what could happen in those moments. But that fear then transforms in me into a greater boldness of doing this work because I know what's at stake. And the beautiful thing is that my son has also learned to see now as a 9-year-old the importance of doing the right thing, even if it makes you scared, and using that as an opportunity, in his view, to be courageous. And so I think, to me, leadership, and especially in a moment like this, is about being honest about those struggles and challenges. But also the reality is in that moment when people were outside my home, I thought of John Lewis at the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, truly. Because I thought to myself, is this what it means to protect democracy? Is this what it was, and I thought of him and all the others throughout history who have endured threats and violence and far worse to simply ensure that the constitutional rights for our citizens are protected and that America lives up to its founding principles. That's the work I did sign up to do with my life. That's why I serve. That's why I ran for office. So if in that moment it means I've marched forward anyway, then I'll do it. And I've done that every step of the way. It hasn't been easy, but it is what I believe is required of leaders in this moment to ensure we emerge out of this dark time, which to me, from an economic standpoint, other types of threats, it is a dark time. We can emerge out of this time with a healthier and more robust economy and democracy than ever before. That's my goal, to get us to a better place. But yes, it does mean marching towards and through a lot of challenges, the fire, as we talk about it, in order to get there.
In my life as a father, I've discovered that children can ask very probing, poignant, and hard to answer questions at times. Has your son asked you any hard questions about what this all means for him, what it means for your family, what it means for the future?
Yeah, many times. I mean, we talk openly about it. And, I sometimes I'll acknowledge how hard this is.
Is he afraid? Does he express fear?
Yes. He loves roller coasters. And one day we were driving to an amusement park and I turned around. He was, I think, 6 or 7 at the time. And I said, how come you're not afraid of roller coasters? You're so brave as a kid. And he looked at me and said, Mom, I'm afraid all the time. But that's the only way I can know that I'm also able to be brave. It was this beautiful moment of him reminding me that being courageous actually requires us to feel afraid.
It's not the absence of fear.
From me. Yeah, exactly.
It's not the absence of fear.
Exactly, overcoming it. So for him to learn that as a young 7-year-old, just by watching us, that's incredible, but encouraging, and really he's amazing in that he. I'm going to get choked up. For Martin Luther King Day, he was asked to select For Martin Luther King Day, he was asked to select a quote from King for his school that meant a lot to him. And he chose the quote about the dark times give us an opportunity to see the stars in the light. And he said that quote meant a lot to him because he understood that we were in dark times and that he wanted to be a star, he wanted to be light. And it was a beautiful thing that he can see the challenges of this time, but also recognize his opportunity to be the light. And so if going through this has taught him that, and frankly, can show young people that are thinking about their future in this world, that we can all be those stars, that we can be those lights, as a result of me standing up or others, that's actually the work. That's actually how we do get out of this moment. And so, yeah, I'm really, really proud of him for enduring all of these challenges as well. And he will acknowledge the challenges. He writes about them. He talks about them now as a 9-year-old. But he also talks about being resilient. It's his word for 2026, resilience. And that's a beautiful thing for us all. It certainly keeps me going, too.
Your husband served in the United States military. You've written and talked about how difficult during his deployments sense of isolation was. Served our country, is my point. Mm-hmm. How did you two talk about these threats and what he sacrificed for this country and what was coming back at him being married to you? Yeah,
and my husband's U.S. Army combat veteran, 173rd Airborne Brigade, served in Afghanistan and many other places throughout his time in active duty. And what I remember, I mean, there were days where he was deployed in Afghanistan, and I, as any military spouse knows, you scenario plan if you get that dreaded call. And he would reach out or call from a forward operating base and try to reach out and say, yeah, today it was hard. Today I dismantled a bomb and there were machine guns targeting me from the Taliban. I say that to say, like, that's our base level, right? That's a real lived experience for us, where I had to sit at home alone, think about my husband being in the battlefield, targeted with machine guns from, foreign militaries, from the Taliban and others. And so there are a few things that scare us, right? When you overcome that and you end up on the other side, we understand often, and he has lived it, what it means to actually defend American democracy at home and overseas. And he sees this, as we all do in our family, as a continuation of that work. And so we are very mission-driven, purpose-driven warriors. And I think we've tried to live that throughout our life, even from, when I started my career investigating white supremacist organizations undercover at the age of 20, to his service in the military to now. All of it has been trying to just do right by those who've come before us, frankly, who've similarly sacrificed great things so that we could live in a country where anyone could go from poverty to prosperity.
For those who have threatened you, do you hate them?
Oh gosh, no. Even when I watched the tragedy at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th unfold, which was devastating, all I could think of is, they have been fed lies. This is all about a lie from a person who can't accept that he lost an election. That's why, to me, truth is the way out, truth is the way forward. And why I try to just ensure, I'll talk with anyone, again, happy to answer questions, because I know the truth is on our side, and the law is on our side, and justice is on our side. And ultimately, I just feel bad for folks who have been misled because they believe in someone who does not respect them, respect their voices, respect the votes of the American people. That is tragic to me. But I see it all as a relation to this era of misinformation that we're in, and the difficulty in getting access to trusted information that too often does lead people to go to extremes. And it is a reflection of a broken system that I'm dedicated my life to trying to fix, that I see unfold in moments like that.
Talking about meeting people, whoever they are, how do you approach your personal security when you're out in a public space?
It's a challenge because I love interacting with people. I love listening. I love hearing. I'm a hugger. I really, and so it's just a constant balance of the two, being vigilant, but also being yourself and being authentic. But again, remember, I was 21, 22 years old, alone in a hotel room in Spartanburg, South Carolina, worried that people I was investigating who were planning to bomb synagogues and do other horrible things, hateful, violent things, worried that they would figure out that I was investigating them and come and, kill me. I had a choice in that moment when I was 21, 22. Do I run and stop doing this work, or do I march forward anyway? And who I've always wanted to be is a person who would choose in those moments to march forward anyway. So for me, that is what, when I'm in those public spaces and feel that fear, I've been honing and building a muscle since that moment in Spartanburg, South Carolina and beyond, doing that work, to stand firm anyway, to be warm anyway, to do the job that I'm there to do, and seek the support of others for the work that I'm trying to do. And then, make smart decisions and try to be safe, but not allow it to deter you.
But you know why I ask?
Yeah.
Just in the last couple of months, and I'll even get to things that happened just this week. Members of Congress encountering people on the road, try to run them off or something. There's something that's deeply disturbing about that. Violent encounters at public events, town halls. Maxwell Frost, a Democrat from Florida, sucker punched at the Sundance Film Festival. Ilhan Omar, syringe. We don't know what's in it. Was harmless, apparently. She carried on.
Yeah.
Yesterday in Nebraska, outside of a high school, there's a Trump and ICE counter-protest, and a young girl, possibly a student, run over. Things feel to me at times, Madam Secretary, as if we're careening.
Yeah.
And you're in that space every day.
Yeah.
Do you feel that careening?
Yeah. It's terrifying.
And I'm not going to ask you, because it's an impossible task for anyone in the public space to police everyone's rhetoric.
Yeah.
But just this week, the governor of Arizona asked the attorney general to retract comments about stand your ground and have your weapon ready if someone comes to your door. There's a Democratic DA in Philadelphia who talks about Nazis and hunting them down, and the Democratic governor denounced those remarks. What do you think the rhetorical space does or doesn't do to aid and abet this careening?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen firsthand how violent rhetoric can lead to violent actions. I've experienced it firsthand. And I think it is incumbent upon all of us as leaders to turn down the volume, to tamp down the rhetoric, to turn down the heat, and also speak the truth, and to draw lines when things cross into violent territory, no matter...
Even within your own party?
Of course. No
Maybe
matter
especially.
What. Yeah, especially, but period. I mean, it's just we are here to do, as public servants, a job to protect the safety of our residents, to deliver results, improve the cost of living, all the rest. We have to stay focused on that. We have to keep delivering. We have to keep addressing the real struggles that people are having, while also pushing for not just civility and civil dialogue and how we interact. Well, I always say I'll work with anyone to improve the lives of Michigan citizens, but I'll also stand up to anyone in furtherance of truth and the law, no matter how wealthy or how powerful they may be, in order to protect the will of the people, the safety of our residents, our rights, our freedoms, our economy, and all the rest. So you have to be able to do both, but you also have to, I think, as leaders, recognize the impact of violent rhetoric has real results for the lives of American citizens. And we can always find ways to disagree without being disagreeable, or seek to do so, and call out those who choose not to, by reminding them of the real ramifications of those choices, to allow rhetoric to lead to violent results or violent actions. The other thing I think leaders really on both sides need to do right now, in addition to return to civility and truthful dialogue and a respectful way of interacting with each other when truth enables it to do so, is recognize that the divisions in our society right now need to be healed as well. That these aren't just about leaders disagreeing with each other. There are real divisions, and we have stopped being able to see each other at the very granular level. And one of the things I want to do in public life is find ways to invest and build spaces where we can re-see our common humanity again, because we have to do that. This cannot continue, this division. We have to be able to see each other, and the fact that we all just want our families to be happy and healthy and safe and nearby, that's something we should be able to unite around. And I think in addition to standing up to tyranny, standing up to lies, working to improve our economy, all those things, public officials right now also need to take responsibility for healing our countries and states again.
But you know the temptation, and you know the underlying partisan demand. These times are terrifying.
Yeah.
People will say on the right and left, and therefore they have to be met with something that is aggressive, that is authentic, that is profane, that is uncompromising.
Well, I don't swear. Some of them.
Right, but you know
Kids
that
are
that
watching
is,
me.
that
But
is
yes,
part of
I hear you.
This underlying demand that people have for this thing that feels authentic and feels visceral. You know that.
I think the point is authenticity. The point to me is about sincere commitment. And anyone who knows me knows I will be fiery when the truth or the rights of American people are trampled on. That is my job as a Secretary of State, as a public official, and just as an American citizen, to always stand up and speak truth to power, always.
And if you become governor.
Yes, to always remind the citizens that their power in our democracy is paramount to anyone else's. The power of the people must always be greater than the people in power. My job is to protect that power, to remind citizens of that power. So yes, fire aside, all of that is real. You can be a truthful, authentic warrior without descending to violent rhetoric. And that's the space we have to be in, I believe, to protect the safety of our communities and really achieve what we need to be doing in this moment, which is bringing our country, our states, our people, communities back together so that we can heal as a society, especially after this multi-year divisive time.
Before I let you go, if anyone Googles you and looks at your Wikipedia page, they will scroll down and find that you've run 30 marathons. 30. That is 40. Okay.
Don't always believe Wikipedia.
Oh, 40. The actual number is 40. So that's 37 more than I've run.
You're getting there, though. One foot in front of the other. One step at a time.
When I was a much younger man. They will also find that you ran your second Boston Marathon. 8 months pregnant.
I did.
How was that possible?
one foot in front of the other, one step at a time. I didn't think I could do it. I didn't. And frankly, no matter how many marathons I've done, every time I start a marathon, I always doubt myself and whether I can finish it. Always, without fail. It just comes on. So I'm like, am I really going to do this? In that one in particular, I just said, I'm going to take one foot in front of the other and see how far I go. When I got to mile 8, I thought, now I can always say I ran 8 miles. When I got halfway, I said, okay, you do one step at a time. And the reason I love running marathons is because it reminds me of that we can always do much more than we think we're capable of. And we never know when we start on a journey really how far we can go and really what we're fully capable of. So to me, running is an actual physical reminder to always take one step at a time and see how far you can get in trying to solve these big problems of today that we've been talking about, right? One conversation at a time, one town hall at a time, one election at a time. That's the work. And then step by step, piece by piece, before you know it, you've run 40 marathons, including one while 8 months pregnant.
Right. And that was, of the 40 you have run, by far the most discretionary of the marathons.
My husband had a bike, and he was biking alongside me with all the hospital kids. Like, we took precautions.
Right. Were you trying to prove something to yourself or to the outside world?
No, I didn't even tell anyone I was doing it because I didn't know it was going to happen. I just knew one foot in front of the other. Let's see what happens.
You didn't know that you were going to finish. You knew you were going to toe the line and get started. You just didn't know what was going to happen.
But I was prepared to step away if it challenged my health or the health of my kid. So yes, and I didn't want to feel pressure to accomplish anything other than putting one foot in front of the other and seeing how far I could go. And I'll never forget, there was actually an 85-year-old man who started the race with me. And, you run a long race. Sometimes you see people again, sometimes you don't. But as I saw the Citgo sign, and everyone who's run Boston knows, when you see the Citgo sign, you know you're almost there. And I remember seeing it and getting choked up, and then, I'm going to do it again, looking to the left and seeing him running alongside me. It was like 6 hours in, and we were slow. But I looked at him, and he looked at me, and we nodded at each other. We crossed the finish line. And that's beautiful, right? Like that's the unrelenting spirit, resilience, like all the things I want to be as a person, as a leader, as a mom, is embodied with what I learned by running those marathons, which is to never give up, always just take one step in front of the other and see how far you can go, and that resilience and perseverance can get you through even the darkest times.
I've read, and in my marathon running and training, experienced a bit of this. Distance brings serenity. Whether you're a long-distance swimmer, long-distance runner, even a long drive can bring a component of serenity. Is that why you run?
Yeah, I serenity is part of it. I get energy from it too. I get space to reaffirm who I really am and what I really want to do. I get space to remind myself what's possible, which often, again, when you start out on a long journey, you can doubt what's really possible. And for me, the distance reminds me that I can do far more than sometimes I think I can when I start out on something, on a journey, and to never give up. In that serenity, in that silence, that's what I find. And it's a reminder of who I am and who I really want to be. It's a way to reconnect with my authenticity and what I want to be as a leader.
This show loves many things. It loves music. It loves food. So when you're running and training, what music do you listen to? And if you finish a marathon, when you finish a marathon, what's your favorite post-marathon meal?
Italian food. Have Italian. I love
pasta.
Got to
carb up.
Before, during, after, all times. Love that. I listen to a whole mix. Beyonce's Freedom is a. Sorry, it still is.
But of course,
it still is. I mean, to be honest, Defying Gravity from Wicked is another one. It's another go-to for me when I'm. There's. I mean, it's a whole mix, like some Disney tunes in there. I love the Moana soundtrack because it's music that's actually about. I start every marathon with "Lose Yourself" from Eminem. Every marathon, and so I have go-to songs that kind of reinforce who I want to be, which is resilient. Not allowing. There's this beautiful scene in Moana where she's all alone and she sings a song that says, "This is who I am, even if," sorry, I'm getting choked up again. "Even if everyone else doubts who I am, this is who I am." And I love listening to music that reminds me of who I am and what I can do. And that's what I need in those serene moments of 18 miles in, where you need to be reminded, no, I can do this, I got this. And music that reminds me of that and the importance of just like, this is your moment, keep going. That's what gets me ready to finish, and then that Italian meal on the other side of the finish line.
Madam Secretary, thanks for the time very much. I
Always a
appreciate it.
pleasure. Thanks, Major. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks.